See here, the last class I was talking about what is platform dependency, platform independency, platform independency, and also we discussed about mission dependency, mission independency, and the different programming approaches. In the different programming approaches, we discussed sequential approach and what are the drawbacks of sequential approach, procedure oriented approach, and what are the advantages of procedure oriented approach. So till here we discussed in the previous class. Okay, in this session I will explain the continuation part of programming approaches. After completion of this topic I will explain about OOPS concepts, very important topic. Okay, today I will discuss about these programming approaches. After completion of this I will explain about OOPS concepts. So all of you pay attention and listen carefully here. Okay, so in the first class we discussed the purpose of Java. So Java is the general purpose high level programming language. Java is the general purpose high level programming language. We can develop standalone applications, mobile applications, web applications, and this Java is the platform independent programming language. Platform dependent programming language means after compilation it creates .exe file. In platform independent programming languages, after compilation intermediate code will be generated. In Java that is called bytecode. So in platform independent programming languages, intermediate code will be generated. In platform dependent programming languages, directly .exe file will be created. Okay, what are the examples for platform dependent programming languages? C, C++, those are the platform dependent programming languages. Java, C Sharp, Python, those are the platform independent programming languages. Next, mission dependency and mission independency. So mission dependency means example languages are C, C++. C, C++ are the mission dependent programming languages, means the software developed in C, C++ can run on computer only. We cannot run on other devices like routers, set-top boxes, smartphones, etc. Okay, so mission independency means we can run we can run the software developed in this language, we can run on many devices like computer, smartphones, personal digital assistants, routers, Blu-ray DVD players, etc. So the main features of Java are platform independency and mission independency. And next we also discussed about programming approaches. So what is approach? Approach means style. Programming approach means the style of writing the program. The style of writing the program is called programming approach. So how many styles are there? 4 styles are there. What are those? First one is sequential style. Second one is procedure oriented style. Third one is object based style, and fourth one is object oriented style. So here what is the first one? Sequential style. Okay, so in the sequential approach, in the sequential programming approach, we write the code sequentially. So earlier versions, starting versions of COBOL Fortran, later they converted into the procedure oriented, but starting versions of COBOL Fortran are the examples for sequential approach. And assembly language is also example for sequential programming language. So in the sequential programming languages, we write the code sequentially. If less amount of code is there, no problem is there with the sequential approach. But if large amounts of code is there sequentially, for example 1 lakh lines code is there sequentially, it becomes difficult to understand that code. So lack of understandability is there. Lack means less understandability is there with sequential approach. Okay, and second, that is one drawback, less understandability is there with the sequential approach languages. And second drawback is it increases length of code. For example, to perform a task, I'm writing some code. After some lines of code, if you want to perform the same task again we have write the same code. So automatically what will happen here? Code length will be increased. Okay, so that is, these two are the drawbacks. So to avoid these two drawbacks, they introduced another approach, another style of programming, that is what? Procedure oriented. procedure oriented. So in the procedure oriented approach, we write the programs in the form of functions. In the sequential approach, we are writing sequentially. That is one style. In the procedure oriented approach, we are writing in the form of functions. We are splitting those lines into some parts. I'm calling that part as function. Okay, so the best example for procedure oriented approach, procedure oriented language is C language. Okay, so most of the students already know about the C language. So the C language is the example for procedure oriented programming language. So we write C program in the form of functions. We write C program in the form of functions. So here I'm writing add, this is one function, fact is the function, power is the function. Like this, we are splitting the program in the form of functions. Now this is one procedure oriented program. This procedure oriented program we are writing in the form of functions. So this is procedure oriented style. Then what are the advantages if you write in the form of functions? Then first advantage is it improves understandability. Here we are not viewing entire code at a time. We are not viewing all lines at a time. We are splitting that in the form of parts. Now this is one part, this is one part, this is one part. So we can understand this part easily. We can understand this part easily. We can understand this part easily. So collection of those parts is becoming the program here. So it improves the understandability. And the next second advantage is it decreases length of code. Yesterday class I explained that. So here we are defining fact function here. Here this is the fact function. This is fact function. We define this function to find factorial of the number. I want to find factorial of the number now. I want to find factorial of the number. So from the main function, I'm calling that fact function. Fact of 5. Okay. Now that finds 5 factorial value. After some lines, again I want to find factorial of another number. So again I will not write this code here. Just simply what I do, I call that function. So this statement jumps to this function and executes the code. So here we are writing code for how many times? One time only. But we can use that code for any number of times by calling. So next, after some lines of code, again if you want to find factorial, again just simply write the calling statement like this. So here we are writing code only for one time, but we can use that code for any number of times. So automatically code length will be decreased. So these the two are the major advantages with the procedure oriented approach. But this procedure oriented approach has also some drawbacks. Now see, listen carefully here. So till here we already discussed in the previous class. Okay, now listen carefully. What are the drawbacks of the procedure oriented approach? So what are the drawbacks here? What are the drawbacks with the procedure oriented approach? Observe. The uh, drawbacks. Drawbacks of procedure oriented approach. So what are the disadvantages with the procedure oriented approach? See, first drawback is it does not provide security for the data. Procedure oriented language does not provide security for the data. No security is there. Very less, very less security is there. So it does not provide security. If it does not provide security for the data, this is first drawback. See, uh, the students who have C++ knowledge, they may aware about the keyword like private keyword, public keyword, protected keyword. These are the access specifiers. Such type of access specifiers are not available in the procedure oriented programming languages. So you are using private keyword. Private member means what? Private member means that is not accessible outside. That is not accessible outside of the class. So such type of private data is not there in the procedure oriented programming languages. So automatically security problems will occur. Okay, so these security problems will occur due to the two concepts. The security problems will occur due to the two concepts. Okay, in the C language, we are using one concept, that is global variables concept. In the C language, we are using global variables concept. And in the C language, one more concept is there, that is pointers concept. So due to these two concepts, security problems may occur in the procedure in the C language. So first concept is what? Global variables. Second concept is what? Pointers. Due to these two concepts, security problems may occur. So how security problems may occur? See here. Listen carefully here. I'm explaining about these concepts, global variables and pointers. Due to these two reasons, security problems may occur. How security problems may occur? Now I'm explaining. Observe here. For example, here I'm writing a function. Here I'm writing a function. That function name is f1. I'm writing a function here. That function name is f1. Function name is f1. So function name is f1. F1 is the function name. In that I'm writing some code here. Like that, I'm writing one more function. That function name is f2. Here I'm writing some code. So like this, I'm writing functions. This is one procedure-oriented program. I'm writing one more function, f3 function. So like this, I'm writing functions here. So this is one procedure-oriented program. So observe here. Here I am declaring a variable here. I'm declaring a variable here. I'm please be in mute mode. Please, all of you be in mute mode. Somebody unmuted here. Okay. See, I'm declaring a variable here. I'm declaring a variable that is int x equals to 20. So 20 is the integer value. I'm declaring one integer variable here. Okay. Please be in mute mode. Please be in mute mode. Somebody unmuted. Please be in mute mode. Okay. So here I'm declaring a variable here. This variable is called what? Global variable. This variable is called a global variable. So global variable means we can access that variable from anywhere. We can access that variable from anywhere. So for example, I'm declaring a variable inside of the function here. Int, I'm giving variable name as a. I'm giving a value as string. So now here, this is what? This is the local variable. This is local variable. This x is the global variable and a is the local variable. The local variable means that can be accessed within the function only. In the f1 function only, I can use a. I cannot use the a variable in the f2. I cannot use a variable in the f3. Okay. Whereas here, this x is the global variable. So global variable can be accessed from any function. So I can access this x variable in f1. I can access this x variable in f2 and I can access that x variable in f3 also. So this scope is global. X variable's scope is global. You can access that x from any function, and not only from any function. Okay, this is another program. This is assume that this is another program. This is program 2. Now this is what? This is program 1. This is program 1 and this one is the program 2. In the program 2, I want to access that x. If you want to access that x in the program 2, you can access. Okay, so in the C language, you already learned about the storage classes. Somebody already know about storage classes. In the storage classes, external storage class is there. Extern is the storage class. External storage class. Even if you write external keyword or not, that is external variable only. That is global variable only. So external means external. This is the external variable. Okay. Even if you write external keyword or not, this is external variable only. This is a global variable only. This external variable can be accessed by other programs also. So here data is open. Data is public here. No private modifier is there in the C language. So automatically what will happen? Anyone can access. So security problems may occur. So this is the problem with the global variables. So because of this reason, in Java, they removed this global variables concept. Java does not support to the global variables concept. Remember this point? Java does not support to the global variables concept. Due to this global variables, several security problems may occur. So that's why they removed this global variables concept. Okay, and next one is pointers. So because of pointers also, security problems may occur. So how security problems may occur with the help of pointers? See here. See, listen carefully. So in the C language, structures concept is there. Okay, try to understand. I want to explain clearly. I'm explaining clearly here. Try to understand. Listen. So I'm defining a structure here. For example, one bank is maintaining customer details like this. So this is a customer structure. This is customer structure. So structure, structure, in the structure we place the members. I'm defining the members here like account number, person's account number, that is one member. Account number, account number is the member. Okay, so like that I want to hold a customer name. So to hold customer name, I'm taking a string here like care name of 20. Okay, I want to hold customer uh, pin number. So to hold customer pin number, customer ATM cards pin number, I'm taking one variable here. I want to hold customer account balance. So to hold customer account balance, I'm taking one variable here. So this is account balance. So now this is a structure. So what is structure? Structure is a collection of members. Now these are called members. So here this account number, pin number, name, balance, these are called what? These are the members. These are the members defined in the structure. So by default, all the members in the structure are public. So in the classes, by default, every member is private in C++. In C++, by default, every member is private. Whereas in C structure, every member is public, means anyone can access. Okay, so if you want to create the object for this customer structure, how you create? How you create? In the main, you create the object. In the main, you create the object. So remember one point. For this structure, memory will not be allocated. When you are defining the structure, memory will not be allocated for this account number, pin number, name, balance. When you create the object for this structure, when you create the object, when you create the structure variable for this structure, memory will be allocated. Now I'm creating one customer object here. So to create the customer object, so here data type is a customer. Okay, so to use that, we write what? Struct customer. Struct customer. I'm giving customer name as C1. So now memory will be allocated for C1. Now memory will be allocated for C1. I am giving C1 details like this. His account number is 1234. For example, his account number is 123456. Okay. For example, his pin number, his account's pin number, his ATM card's pin number is 6789. Then his name is Ramu. His name is Ramu. His account balance is 1 lakh. His account balance is 1 lakh. Like this, some data is there. Okay. Now what will happen? C1 object will be created. In the C1 object that stores all these values. So C1 object will be created in the C1 that stores all these values. In the C1 that stores this account number, then pin number, then name, then balance. So generally in the C language for the integer 2 bytes. Okay, so here for the account number 2 bytes memory will be allocated. Then for pin number 2 bytes memory allocated. For the name 20 bytes memory will be allocated. For the double 8 bytes memory will be allocated. So memory will be allocated for C1. So in the C1 this data is there. Now due to the pointers concept, in the pointer arithmetic concept is there. Listen carefully here. In the pointer arithmetic concept is there. In the pointer arithmetic concept is there. Okay, so what is pointer? Pointer is a variable that holds address of the variable of same data type. Pointer is the variable that holds address of the variable of same data type. Here I'm declaring a pointer variable of struct customer type. I'm declaring a pointer variable p here. In the pointer variable p, I am holding the address of C1. I am holding address of customer 1. So here this p is a which type variable? Customer type variable. This C1 is a which type variable? Customer type variable. So customer type variable's address can be holded by the pointer of the same data type. So that's why I'm holding like this. Okay, so P equals to address of M1. Now P has this 1 2 3 4 5 6 account numbers first bytes address. P has this account numbers first bytes address. So for the account number, 2 bytes memory is allocated. So first bytes address is in P. So in the pointers, pointer arithmetic is there. So what is pointer arithmetic? So pointer arithmetic means what? Using operators on pointers. Using operators on pointers is called pointer arithmetic. See, you are in the arrays, in the C language, in the arrays, array elements are stored in sequential memory allocations. Array elements are stored in sequential memory allocations. So like that, this structure elements are also stored in sequential memory allocation. Structure elements are also stored in sequential memory locations. Structure elements are also stored in sequential memory locations. For example, if first element is stored in 5000 memory location, the next element will be stored in 5000 is 1 byte address. So next byte address is 5001. So next pin number will be stored in which address? 5002. So like that. So here P means we are holding address of this account number. So now P has this 5000 value. So 5000 means, so when we use pointer P, that accesses this one. Okay, now I'm writing like this. I'm writing P plus plus. Now P is accessing which one? Account number. Now P is accessing which one? Account number. See here, observe. So here P is accessing account number. So if you write like this, if you print pointer P value, that prints account number. I want to access next one. So to access the next one, what I'm doing is I'm writing P plus plus. So after writing P plus plus, so here what we are doing, we are applying operator on pointer variable. So applying operator on pointer variable is called what? Pointer arithmetic. So if you write pointer P, now that accesses what? That accesses pin number. So pin number is very sensitive data. So bank must provide security for this data. But if I know the account number's address, I can access the pin number now. Okay, so like that, again I'm writing P plus plus. Okay, then again I'm writing pointer P. Now what will happen? That accesses name. So again I'm writing P plus plus. Okay, so P plus plus means next that accesses this balance. So if you write pointer P, now what will happen? That accesses the account balance. So see, bank must provide security for the data of the customers. But if bank application is developed in the language like C, procedure oriented programming language like C language, in the C language this pointers concept is there. If they know the address of the account number, they can access the pin number, that is very very sensitive data, and they can know the name, and they can know the uh, they can they can know the uh, see here, they can know the account balance also. So here I am explaining these 2 points. See, I'm explaining these 2 points because C language is not providing security. I'm explaining these two concepts because C language is not providing security. See, C language is a procedure oriented programming language. See, somebody asked here, I'm not explaining C language here. I'm explaining about programming approaches. As a programmer, you have to know about programming approaches. So what are the drawbacks of procedure oriented approach? Then only you can understand clearly what are the advantages of the object oriented approach. So that's why I'm explaining clearly here. So in the procedure oriented, the first drawback is what? It does not provide security for the data. So because of these two concepts, first concept is what? Global variables concept, and second concept is what? Pointers concept. So due to these two concepts, security problems may occur. So if we know one data's address, we can access next data. So with that, we can access complete data. So with that, several security problems may occur due to the pointer arithmetic. And global variables can be accessed from anywhere. So due to these two reasons, security problems will occur. See, so the second drawback is less reusability of code is there. Less reusability of code. Less reusability of code is there in the procedure oriented programming languages like C language. See, C language does not provide security. So here no private keyword in the C language, so security is not there. Okay, by using the private keyword, you can provide basic security for the data, and you are using classes concept also in the object-oriented programming languages. So less reusability of code is there in the procedure-oriented programming languages. So less reusability of code is there. So see, object-oriented programming languages supports concepts like supports one concept like inheritance. So this inheritance main purpose is reusability of members. So reusability of members, we are using this inheritance concept. So that concept is not available in the C language. So that's why less reusability is there. For example, we developed one software in the C language. We have given that software to the client. Now client wants to add some more functionality to that software. So at that time, he approaches again to the developer. Now what developer will do? Developer write the function to perform that particular task. So here procedure oriented program means what? We write programs in the form of functions. So here programmer mainly focuses on writing the functions. So he writes again some set of functions and he gives to the client. But he is not concentrating, are there any existing members? Can I reuse them? He is not focusing on reusing the members here. Just he is creating the new functions and he is giving to the client. So automatically less reusability problem will occur. So to avoid this problem, inheritance concept introduced in the object oriented programming language. Okay, so this is about drawbacks of procedure oriented programming languages. Okay, so once again I'm repeating, sequential approach has two drawbacks. First one is less understandability is there. If large amounts of code is there, less understandability problem will occur. And the second drawback is it increases length of code. So if we want to perform the same task again and again, we have to write the same code. Automatically code length will be increased. So to avoid these two drawbacks, they introduced procedure oriented approach. Here we write programs in the form of functions. So this, what are the advantages with the procedure oriented approach? So if these drawbacks are avoided, sequential approach drawbacks are avoided, those will become the advantages of the procedure oriented approach. First advantage is it improves understandability because we are writing in the form of parts, in the form of functions, and it decreases length of code. So we are writing code only for one time, but we can use that code for any number of times by calling. So here, uh, for with the procedure oriented approach, some drawbacks are there, like security problems will occur, less reusability is there, maintenance problems will occur, okay, and extendability problems will occur. Such type of problems will occur due to this procedure oriented programming languages. So to avoid these drawbacks, to avoid the drawbacks of procedure oriented approach, they introduced another approach. That approach is called object oriented approach. That approach is object oriented approach. Object oriented. See here. See, object oriented approach. Then what is object oriented approach? In the object oriented approach, we write the program. We write the program in the form of. We write the program in the form of classes and objects. We write the program in the form of classes and objects. See, so here we are writing the program in the object oriented approach. We write the program in the form of classes and objects. Example languages are C++ is example of object oriented programming language. Like that, Java is the object oriented programming language. C#.NET is the object oriented programming language. VB.NET is the object oriented programming language. So like that, Python is the object oriented programming language. Several object oriented programming languages are there. So in the object oriented programming languages, what is the style here? We write program in the form of classes and objects. In the sequential approach, we are writing sequentially. In the procedure oriented, we are writing in the form of functions. In the object oriented, we write program in the form of classes and objects. So see, So what is object oriented programming language? Object oriented programming language means, object oriented programming language means, if any language, if any language that supports to four major concepts, four principles, four concepts, those are, first one is encapsulation, first one is encapsulation, second one is abstraction, first one is encapsulation, second one is abstraction, third one is inheritance, third one is inheritance, and fourth one is polymorphism, fourth one is polymorphism. So if any language that supports to these four concepts, if any language that supports to these four concepts, I will explain what is encapsulation, what is abstraction, what is inheritance, what is polymorphism. These things I will explain clearly. Just to understand what is object oriented programming language, I will explain clearly in today's session only. That is OOPS. In the OOPS concepts, I will explain. Okay, just understand the terms. Just hear the terminology. So encapsulation is one OOPS concept, one concept. Abstraction is the concept, one object-oriented programming concept. Inheritance is one object-oriented programming concept. Polymorphism is one object-oriented programming concept. So all these are what? These are the object-oriented programming concepts. If any language that supports to these four concepts, if any language that supports to these four concepts, that language is called object-oriented programming language. So here C++, Java, C Sharp, Python, I'm calling these as object-oriented programming languages because they support to the encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. Okay, so then you may get a doubt. In the programming approaches, I told four. First one is sequential, second one is procedure-oriented, third one is object-based. Third one is what? Object-based. See. So object-based means what? Object-based means in the object based approach, in the object based approach, we write program in the form of classes or in the form of structures. So object based means we write program, we write program in the form of, we write program in the form of classes, we write program in the form of classes and structures. So in the object based, we write programs in the form of classes and structures. Okay, and for those classes or structures, we create the object also. So here also, and objects. So we write program in the form of classes or structures and objects. Object oriented program is also, I'm telling the same purpose. So we write the program in the form of classes and objects. Then what is the difference here? What is the difference between object based and object oriented? So in the object related languages, there are two types of languages. There are two types of object related languages. First one is object based, second one is object oriented. In the object based, we write program in the form of classes, structures, and objects. In the object oriented, we write program in the form of classes and objects. So what is object based programming language? Object based programming language means, object based programming language means, so just now I told four concepts. If a language supports to these four concepts, we are calling that as object oriented programming language. For example, if a language is supporting to encapsulation, abstraction, these two concepts only, but that is not supporting to the inheritance, that is not supporting to the inheritance, and that is not supporting to the polymorphism. If a language supports to the encapsulation and abstraction, but does not support to the inheritance and polymorphism, such type of languages are called object based programming languages. Then what are the examples for object based programming languages? Okay, once upon a time VB language we were using, VB language was there, VB. So VB stands for visual basic, visual basic. This is the object based programming language. In the C language, structures concept, today we discussed about this one. So C structures concept is based on C structures concept is the object based. So in the C language, object based concept is also there, that is structures. In the VB, we use classes. In the VB we use classes, so classes concept is there, so encapsulation concept is there, and abstraction concept is there. But VB is not providing inheritance and polymorphism, so that's why this VB and C structures are called. See, this VB language was introduced in the 1991. Okay, they introduced VB 1.0 version in the 1991, but later they released six versions. In the 1998, they released last version VB 6.0. This VB 6.0 is the last version in the VB. So this VB is the platform dependent programming language, but Java is the platform independent programming language. So after introduction of Java, Java is ruling the software industry. Okay, so it is, see, so VB 6.0 is the platform dependent programming language, but that at that time Java was already released, that is a platform independent programming language. So most of the programmers were developing their softwares in the Java only, because that is platform independent. But VB, that is a platform dependent. So this VB is the product of Microsoft company. So to make this VB as the platform independent, they created another language, that is VB.NET. So they developed separate software, that is .NET. In the .NET, several languages are there, like C Sharp, VB, several languages are there. So they introduced next language as the VB.NET. So this VB 6.0 till 6.0, so VB 6.0 is the example for object based programming language. So that supports to encapsulation, abstraction, but that does not support to the inheritance and polymorphism. Object oriented programming language means that supports to encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. Okay, I hope you understood this point. Once again, I'm repeating. Object related languages, how many languages are there to, according to the object related? So two languages are there. First one is object based, second one is object oriented. Object based programming languages can support encapsulation and abstraction, but does not support inheritance and polymorphism. Whereas object oriented programming languages can support encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So simply you can say object oriented programming language means object based features, object based features. Object oriented programming language means object based features plus inheritance plus polymorphism, plus inheritance plus polymorphism. So object oriented programming language means object based features plus inheritance plus polymorphism. So in the object based, we are placing members in one particular container. We are calling that container as a class or structure. Okay, object oriented means we are placing those members in the classes, and the advantage here is we can establish we can establish relationship between the classes. We can establish relationship between the classes. So we can establish relationship between the classes. That concept is called what? Inheritance. That concept is called inheritance. So this is about programming approaches. So how many programming approaches are there? Four programming approaches are there. In the sequential, we write the code sequentially. It has some drawbacks. To avoid those drawbacks, they introduce a procedure oriented. It has also some drawbacks, security problems, maintenance problems, such type of problems are there. So that's why they introduced object oriented and object based. Object based languages can support encapsulation and abstraction, but does not support inheritance and polymorphism. Object oriented means they supports all these four concepts. Okay, now see the next topic, OOPS concepts. In the OOPS concepts topic, I will explain these four concepts. Now pay attention and listen carefully here. Very, very important topic. Try to understand. Later, when I explain about creating the class, creating object, at that time, again, I will explain. But to get some clarity, I use some terms. Whenever I explain the differences between C and Java, I use the terms like procedure oriented. Uh, uh, Whenever I explain differences between C++ and Java, I use object oriented. Such type of terms I regularly use in our sessions. So for an idea purpose, I am explaining all these concepts. Okay, try to understand, listen carefully, very, very important. If you understand OOPS concepts, then you can play with the Java. So pay attention and listen carefully here. So topic name is OOPS concepts. Listen carefully. I will try to explain more clearly about the OOPS concepts. See, listen. So OOPS stands for Object Oriented Programming System. Object Oriented Programming System. OOPS stands for Object Oriented Programming System. So first they introduced object oriented programming concepts. Based on those concepts, they developed some languages. So first concepts were developed, later languages were developed. Okay, so when these concepts were developed in the late 1950s, these object oriented programming concepts are developed. These are developed at MIT. This MIT is one private research institute, research university. MIT is the private research institute which is in the Cambridge, US. So this is the US research university. MIT is the research university which is in the Cambridge. They developed these OOPS concepts. They introduced these OOPS concepts in the late 1950s. In the late 1950s, they developed these OOPS concepts. So later, based on these OOPS concepts, one object oriented programming language was developed. So first object oriented programming language is first object oriented programming language they developed, that is Simula 67. Simula 67 is the first object oriented programming language. Simula 67 is the first object oriented programming language which was introduced in the 1960s. So in the 1960s, first object oriented programming language was developed, that is Simula 67. So in the late 1950s, concepts were developed. Based on those concepts, first object oriented programming language was developed, that is Simula 67. Okay, so almost all students already know about C++ language. So you already hear about C++ language. The C++ language is the advanced language of C. Means all the code which is in the C language can also run in C++. So C++ is the advanced version of C. So who developed this C++ language? This C++ language was developed by Barney Strostrup. Barney Strostrup introduced this C++ language. He introduced this language in the 1980s. So when he was doing PhD, he was using this Simula 67 language, and he attracted with these OOPS concepts, and he also attracted with the C language. So to the C language, he added OOPS concepts. He has taken those OOPS concepts from the Simula 67. So those OOPS concepts are added to the C language. Later, he has given that name as C++. So first he has given name as C with classes. So to the C language, OOPS concepts are added. So later it was renamed as C++. So first object-oriented programming language is Simula 67, but first famous object-oriented programming language is C++. So this C++ has some drawbacks. So C has some drawbacks. So they introduced C++. C++ has some drawbacks. So that's why they introduced what? Java. Okay. So yesterday we discussed this C++ is the mission dependent, platform dependent, whereas Java is the platform independent, mission independent. So like that, advantages are there with the Java. Okay. Now, what is the topic here? OOPS concepts. So OOPS stands for Object Oriented Programming System. These OOPS concepts were introduced in the late 1950s by MIT. That is one private research university which is in the US. Okay. So now listen carefully here. So what are the OOPS concepts are there? So just now we have seen the terms. Those are encapsulation, abstraction, abstraction, inheritance, inheritance. So in the previous class, I already explained about mission independent. So mission independent means we can run on many devices. Mission independent means we can run on many devices. C++ programs we can run on computer only. Whereas Java programs we can run on computer, we can run on router, we can run on set-top boxes. Like that, on billions of devices we can run Java applications. So that's why it is the mission independent. Okay. So what are the OOPS concepts? In encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So these are the OOPS concepts. For all these four concepts, one common concept is there. That is what? Class. Two common concepts are there. Those are class and object. Class and object. So all these are called OOPS concepts. Okay. So what are the OOPS concepts? Class, object, encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So these concepts are called object oriented programming concepts. If a language supports to these four concepts, encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism, that is called object oriented programming language. For all these four concepts, the common topic is class and object. With the help of class and object only, we use all these concepts. Okay, now see about what is class. So before going to discuss about what is class, so here OOPS means what? Object oriented programming system. Here everything revolves around the object. Here everything revolves around the object. So first you have to understand clearly here. Okay, so forget about this. I'm talking generally. Listen carefully. I'm explaining clearly here. Listen carefully. So generally, what is object? Object means anything which is physically existed. I'm talking generally here. Generally anything which is physically existed is called object. Anything which is physically existed is called object. For example, my laptop is physically existed. Okay, pen is physically existed. Table is physically existed. AC is physically existed. So anything which is physically existed, those are called what? Objects. Anything which is not physically existed are not called objects. For example, imaginations are not physically existed. Thoughts are not physically existed. Concepts are not physically existed. Plans are not physically existed. So which is physically existed is called object, which is not physically existed is not called an object. So anything which is physically existed is called object. Okay, so for any object some properties will be there. For any object, general, for any object some properties will be there, and that can be used to perform particular actions. Any object has some properties and that is used to perform particular actions. For example, I'm taking marker. So marker is the object. Marker is the object. So what is the color of the marker? That color is the property. Color is called what? Property. Okay, so what is the cost of the marker? Cost is the property. So this is which company's marker? That is the property. Okay, and what is the weight of the marker? This is a property. So for any object some properties will be there. Okay, now listen. For okay, see, so what are these are the properties. So these are the properties. These are called properties. So here, what is the color of the marker? Marker is the object. What is the color of the marker? What is the cost of the marker? So this is manufactured by which company, and what is the weight of the marker? What are these are the properties. So after that, see, why we are using this marker we are using for uh, writing on board. So writing is what? Writing is the action. This writing is called what? Action. This writing is the action. So to perform particular action, what we define? We define the function. So to perform particular task, we define what? we define the function. Okay, so here in the OOPS concepts, to say more clearly, to perform the actions, we define member functions. We define member functions. Okay, because this we define in the class. So a function which is defined in the class is called a member function. This member function can be also called as method. Okay, so to perform particular actions, we define member functions. Okay, now these are what? These are the properties. Okay, so for any object, some properties will be there, as well as that can be used to perform particular actions. I'm taking one more example here. For example, I'm taking smartphone. Okay, I'm taking smartphone. So smartphone is the object. Okay, that is which company's smartphone? That is the property. Okay, and what is the cost of that smartphone? That is the property. Okay, and uh, so company, cost, what is the color of the smartphone? Okay, what is the weight of the smartphone? Okay, and so like that, these are what? These are the properties. These are the properties of the object. Then why we are using the smartphone? For calling. So calling is one action. Okay, you are doing video calls, so video calling is an action. You are doing chatting is an action. Chatting is an action. Chatting is an action. So like that, for browsing also you are using smartphone. So for enjoying the music also you are using. So all these are what? Actions. These are the properties. So for you take any object, some properties will be there, as well as behavior will be there, as well as action that can be used to perform particular actions. Okay, so these are called properties. Properties can be also called as attributes, or you can say member variables. These actions, to perform the actions, we define some functions. Those are called member functions. Those are called member functions. So member functions can be also called as methods. See, so for any object, some properties will be there, as well as that can be used to perform particular actions. So this is the general concept. Remember this one. Remember this one. Now I'm explaining about what is class. Listen carefully. So just now I explained about object. So generally, what is object? Object means what? That is physically existed. For any object, some properties will be there, as well as that can be used to perform particular actions. See, for example, I want to create two objects now. I want to create some objects. See, I'm opening Paint. I'm opening Paint. I want to create. So one bank want to maintain customer details. I want to create customer objects now. So this is one object. This is another object. Okay, so this is customer one. This is customer two. So customer is physically existed. So I'm calling that as the object. So what are the properties we require? What are the properties we require? So bank wants to maintain his account number. Bank wants to maintain his account number. So account number is one property. Okay, so his, for example, his account number is 123. So this 123 is the data of that customer one. Okay, here account number is what? Account number is a property. That properties data is 123. So like that. Next, I want to hold customer name. So to hold customer name, this name is a property. So name is a property. So like that, account balance is the property. So this is account balance. So account balance is the property. So like that, here for customer two also, I want account number, I want account name, person name, customer name, and I want customer balance, etc. So here, this is customer one's details. These are the customer two details. I want to create such type of customer details. N number of customers are there. I want to maintain such type of customer objects, customer details now. So to maintain customer details, first we have to make a plan here. First we have to make a plan. So to create such type of objects, first we have to make a plan. That plan is called class. That plan is called what? Class. That's it. So class means that is just like a plan to create the object. Class is a plan to create the object. For example, if you before going to construct the home, first we take the plan from the engineer. So to construct the home, a plan is required. To construct a home, one plan is required. So we take the plan from engineer. Okay, that is a logical one. That is a logical copy. So based on that plan, we construct the home. Home is physically existed. Plan is not physically existed. So plan is the concept. So here engineer is giving one plan to construct the home. Okay, based on that plan we are constructing a home. So home is physically existed, that plan is not physically existed. Okay, so here similarly, customer 1, customer 2, customer 3, like that n number of customers are there, all these are physically existed. So to create for all these customers some common properties are there, and we want to perform some actions. Okay, so to perform those actions, to maintain system of properties, I'm making a plan here. That plan is called class. So to create the objects, we are making a plan. That plan is called class. So to create this customer object, what we will do? First, we identify the properties. So bank wants to maintain what? His account number, okay, and his name, his balance, etc. So all these are what? These are the properties. These are the properties. So like that, which actions a customer may perform? Customer withdraw the money. Withdrawal. So customer withdraw the money from his account. So withdrawing the money is one action. So to perform that action, I want to define one member function here. I want to define a method here. Okay. If customer want to deposit the money, he deposits the money. So depositing is one action. So to perform the action, what we are writing here? Method. See, listen. Function is a set of statements. We write some statements in one particular block, that is called function. So function is a set of statements that gets executed on calling. So when we call the function, then only that execute the code. In the procedure oriented, I already explained, we define fact function. We are calling that fact function from the main function. Okay, so that is function. So if we define that function inside of the class, that is called member function, or you can say method. If you define outside of the class, then simply we call that as a function. If you define that inside of the class, that will become member of the class now. If that is becoming member of the class, we use the term member function, or you can say that as method. So here withdraw is the method, deposit is the method. So like that, customer want to transfer some amount from his account to another account. So there is fund transferring. So like that, to perform the actions, we are making plan here. For withdrawal, here we are making one plan. For depositing, we are writing some code. For fund transferring, we are writing some code. So all these are what? These are the actions which are performed by the customer. Okay, so customer wants to perform these actions. So those actions we are developing here. So those methods we are defining inside of the class. So we are identifying the properties and we are identifying the methods. Here we are making one plan. So this is the plan. Now this is the plan. Now this is the plan. Now this is the plan. Okay, this is the plan. Here I am giving this class name as, sorry, just wait. So this is what? This is the plan. This is a plan to create the customer objects. So to create these customer objects, we are making this plan here. So for this plan, I am giving a name, that is class. Class, I'm giving class name as, sorry, class. So class, I'm giving class name as customer. So now this is the plan to create such type of customer objects. Okay, so very simple here. If you want to construct the home, you take the plan from the engineer. Based on the plan, you construct that one. So similarly, I want to create customer objects. So for that, I'm making one plan here. That plan is called what? Class. So class is a plan to create the object. I hope you understood. Okay. So what is class? I'm writing the points here related to the class. Okay. So what is class? Generally, this class is a user defined data type. Class is a user defined data type. Class is a user defined data type. We are defining our own data type. See, in the C language, one data type is there, that is int data type, float data type, float data type, and char data type. These are the primitive data types. Okay, so int, float, char, these are what data types. So if user wants to hold student rule number is 10. Okay, or another student's rule number is 20, like that. So 10, 20, 30, I want to hold marks 45. These are what integer values, numbers without decimal places. So to hold such type of values, I'm taking a variable here. Okay, later I will discuss what is variable, everything. Just try to understand. To hold this 10 value, I'm taking a variable here. So this is integer value. To create such type of integer variables, they made a plan. In the C language, they made a plan. That plan is what? Int data type. This is the plan. This int is the data type. That is a plan they have created to create such type of integer variables. To hold integer data, they made a plan, that is int. To hold the float data, like per students average marks are 68.56, like this. So numbers with decimal places are called float. I want to hold such type of float values. So if you want to work with such type of float values, they made a plan. That plan is what? Float. I want to hold student section. He belongs to A section. He belongs to A section. So I want to hold such type of single characters. So to hold such type of single characters, they made a plan. That plan is what? Char. So similarly, here int is the data type, float is the data type, char is the data type. Those are the primitive data types. Primitive means historically they are coming. So from the introduction of the programming language, they are coming. So that's why we are using the term primitive. So these are the primitive data types. Okay, so I'm calling this class is a user defined data type, means we can create our own data type. For example, I want to create my own data type like customer. I want to create my own data type student. I want to create my own data type rectangle. Okay, so like that we can create our own data types. Okay, those are called user defined data types. This class is one user defined data type. You are defining class means you are defining one data type. Okay, so and just now I explained that this class is a plan. This class is a plan to create the object. What is the class? Class is a plan to create the object. Then what a class contains? just now i explained just now I explained. Observe, for any object, some properties will be there, as well as that can perform particular actions. So here, what are the properties? Account number, name, balance, these are what? Properties. Withdraw, deposit, fund transfer, these are what? Methods. These are the properties. Account number, name, balance, these are the properties. Withdraw, deposit, fund transfer, these are the methods. Okay, we are placing properties and methods in one particular container. I'm calling that container as class. Now these are the properties, these are the methods. I'm placing properties and methods in one particular container. I'm calling that container as a class. So in the class, some members are there. Those members are called properties and methods. So these are the properties, these are the methods. Okay, so class contains what? Properties and methods. So you can say class is a collection of properties and methods. So class is a collection of members. Class is a collection of members. So here members means you can use member term for the property or method. Okay, so members means properties, methods. I'm calling properties and methods as the members. So class is the collection of members where members are the properties and methods. Class is the collection of members where members are the properties and methods. And this class is a logical copy. It is a logical copy. This is a logical copy. This is not physical one. It is not physically existed. Just it is a plan. It is the logical one. Okay. So it is the logical copy, or you can say logical container. Class is a logical container. Class is a logical container. I'm calling this as container because it is containing some members. Class is a logical container. So this is about class. So what is class? It is the user defined data type. We can create our own data types. It is the plan to create the object. Before going to create the objects, we are making we are making a plan. That plan is called class. And this class is the collection of members where members are properties and methods, and it is the logical container. See, in the Windows, we can create the folders. This folder is a logical one. Observe here, in a new folder, here in the F drive, I want to create a new folder here. Here, new, I'm creating a folder. Okay, this folder is, I'm giving folder name as some ABC. ABC is the folder name. Okay, this folder is logical one, this is not physical one. Now this is not physically existed, this is the empty folder that is showing in the tooltip, that is showing there is an empty folder. If you observe the properties, that is displaying 0 bytes, so no memory is allocated for the folder. This is logical one. Then why we are using this folder? To place the files. So in this ABC folder, I am placing in this, I want to create a file. I'm creating a new text file here. I am giving this a new text file name as ABC. I'm opening this one. Now I'm typing some code here. I'm closing this one. I'm clicking on save. Now some memory is allocated here. Okay, now observe the properties of this folder. Right click on it, then select properties option. Now it is displaying what? Size, some size, 38 bytes. Okay, so folder is logical one, that is not physically existed, whereas this file is physically existed. So folder is the concept. So like that, here class is a logical one. Class is logical one, that is not physically existed. Class is logical container. Object, for the object memory will be allocated, so object will be physically existed. Okay, so this is about class. So today I stop our session here. In the next class, I will explain about remaining concepts. I will try to explain more clearly about all these concepts. In the next class, I will explain about what is object encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. So now I'm stopping the session. Okay. Now, if you have any doubts, you can ask me now. Please. Krishna Prasad is asking something, 3,000 or 5,000. Please contact the Durgasoft office. Please contact the Durgasoft office. Class and object tomorrow. Yes, again I will explain about class and object. No problem, no problem at all. Again I will start with that one only. Okay. Any doubts? Okay. Okay. If you have any doubts, please ask me. I will explain in next class. Krishna Prasad, what is abstraction? I will explain in next class. Okay. That is the next topic. So just today we discussed what is class. That's it. Tomorrow continue in the continuation. I will explain what is object, abstraction, everything. I will explain clearly. No problem at all. Okay. Any doubts? Shall I stop the session? Yes. Yes, shall I stop the session? So now I'm stopping the session. Okay. So tomorrow I will explain about OOPS concepts. There is a continuation part. Okay. Thanks to all.